welcome to the Permian Basin Master Gardener Tours. My name is Suzanne Rowland. I'll be your host today. I'm a Permian Basin Master Gardener as well as a County Extension Agent for Andrews County. Today I'd like to introduce our special guest, Nancy Donovan. Nancy, thank you for having us.
Glad y'all are here.
Yes, we're glad to be here too. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in greenhouse planting?
Well, I've been a master gardener. This is my 21st year, and I have most of these plants in here go outside, and I got tired of having to replace my plants every year, so my husband built me a greenhouse, and that was in 2013 and 2014. It took him a while to get it built. The windows are we got replacement windows for the house, so these are windows that were in our house before we replaced them. Everything in here we have just kind of flown by the seat of our pants trying to figure stuff out. The one thing I wish that it had were the windows that open. They do not open. There is up at the top, there's louvers on the outside, and during the winter I have to get up there and put styrofoam all the way around. There are vents on the east side and the north side that are in the block, and then up in the roof up there is a cupola that has a fan out of an refrigerated air conditioning unit that goes on during the summer that pulls the hot air out. But it's just not quite enough. It needs more circulation.
What size is your greenhouse?
It's a 20 by 20.
20 by 20, and it's made out of cinder block and windows. Anything else?
Metal.
Metal. Okay.
And the roof is polycarbonate on the south half of it. The north half of it is solid, just a tin roof.
And it's south facing?
South facing.
Okay. This is very nice. What do you grow in your greenhouse? It looks like you have an assortment of a lot of things.
I have a lot of things. Right now I have my tomatoes that I am beginning to propagate. I put those in 4-inch pots. I have them over on a heat mat on the other side that are getting to be this size. I have a aquaponic system that I'm struggling a little bit with, and then over on the other one it's a hydroponic system that's doing pretty good. Those are tomatoes. They're the very small tomatoes, and I come out here and just snack on them all the time.
Can you tell us the difference between a hydroponics and an aquaponics system for those of us who don't know?
Yeah. The aquaponic system, you have fish, and you have food that feeds your fish, and the water circulates, and that's what feeds your plants. On the hydroponic, you put fertilizer in there, and you do not have fish.
And so what kind of fish how do you know what kind of fish to use for your aquaponic system?
That's one thing I'm struggling is right now. I just have goldfish in there, and I have just learned that the goldfish are not a really good fish for aquaponics. So I'm waiting until it gets warm. I'm going to put those in my pond and get some maybe bluegill, something like that. We don't eat fish, so...
And what about catfish? How would catfish do you think?
I don't think my water's deep enough for catfish. Okay. Because the water's only maybe 18 inches deep.
Could you tell us a little bit about your heating and cooling system?
Well, when we first did it, we had a pellet stove. And the pellets, you have to put pellets in it every night, and it heats the greenhouse great, except when you're out of town, there's nobody here feeding it. Yeah. So the heater is over on the wall. It's a heater out of a mobile home. And my husband made it where it's got tubes that come out, then I can direct the heat. And I have a fan, just a ceiling fan that brings that heat down, and it's on a thermostat that I leave at 50.
Okay, so naturally during the winter we need to keep it warm. What about in the summer? Do you have plants in here in the summer where you need to
I have a, well, the aquaponics and the hydroponics stay. Most everything else goes outside. I have a swamp cooler back here, but because of our water, the pads stop up. I've just gotten a filter for it that we're going to see this summer if that is going to make it any better, because it gets to where it doesn't cool because the water is so hard that it stops the pads up.
And I think across West Texas in the Permian Basin we have very hard water, don't we?
And I'm on a well, so, and it's West Odessa.
Okay. Now what about your fertilization system? Do you fertilize manually or do you add it to your watering system?
No,
How do you do
I use Texas Tea. It's a organic granular fertilizer, and you can put it on your house plants, your hanging baskets, your yard. You can put it everywhere. I've just started to make compost tea over here, and in that it's worm castings and an inoculant and molasses. And then you have air that goes in there, and that makes your compost tea.
Golly. Can you tell us what an inoculation is used for? And the reason I ask is that's a new term I've learned, and so I'm kind of curious. What exactly is
that? Well, it just helps get the microorganisms going in your with the molasses and your vermicote that's the worms produce. It's called vermicote.
Okay. All right. All right, Nancy. So I was wondering, I know that you have 5 acres out here. So how did you determine the location of your greenhouse? How did you know where to put it?
Well, it's close to the house where it's easy access to come out and take care of things. And then this part of the yard, it was just grass, so we really didn't have another use for it. So this was a place that we have, and that we can go along the side and come in the back if I need to bring in heavy things.
Okay, so accessibility is very important. Electricity, water. Okay. So I did notice that you have these shade cloths up, and I assume that's to keep it cooler.
It does keep it cooler. This year I did put this up. Hopefully it will keep it cooler this summer. But this is another piece of it, and they're just on these wire cables with zip ties, and this stretches all the way across.
Okay, very nice. And where did you get the shade cloths? Can you get them in a
Harbor Freight?
Okay, Harbor Freight. There you go.
Harbor Freight, and then the wire, and then I just have them attached to the wood on this side, and then there's a hook thing that goes on the other side.
Okay, great.
This is an aquaponic system. I have goldfish down here, which I'm not sure that you probably can't see them, but I bought them at PetSmart for 32 cents. So there's a bunch of them down there because I didn't think I had enough waste to make my plants grow. Well, since then I have got a water test. I've got too much ammonia, too much nitrates and nitrites. So I've got to have a water exchange, but I use rainwater for this, and I don't have enough rainwater, so I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do. This is a jalapeno that's been growing all winter. This is lettuce, and it's kind of droopy because it's a little warm, but all of these I started from seed. This is a piece of rock wool, and you bury it in, and it absorbs the water, and this is where you put your seed, and then it just grows from there. This is the food, and it's an automatic feeder. It feeds once a day. I got it off of Amazon, but it's the fish food that I got from a hydroponic store in Austin, so I know it's the right food. But it's doing pretty good. It's just, I know that there's a problem with the way the leaf looks. I know that that's something is not right in the neighborhood. The way this works, water is pumped up here, and water is pumped continuously up there. This is a bell siphon, and it's fixing to siphon. It fills up to about right here, and then the bell siphon is in here, and when it gets full enough, it'll drain. The water over there goes continuously. It'll drain, and when it gets down here, it breaks the siphon, and then it'll fill back up. And that's how that works. It took me a while because on your bell siphon, you have to have it all your piping has to be right, and your flow over there, it can't flow in more than this flows out when it gets really low. So I've watched YouTube videos, and I think the guy was Bob from Australia, I think, that I watched, and he's pretty good. So it's cycling now, and the water will go all the way down. You can kind of see a dark line there.
Nancy, I'm curious why you chose to use rainwater in your aquaponics system.
Well, our water is so bad out here that I figured that that's going to be better for my plants, and it keeps the calcium and everything off of my clay balls. This tank is full of clay balls that look like this, and these are for hydroponic and aquaponic systems, and it's very difficult to clean, so I'm trying to keep my water as clean as possible.
What capacity do you have for holding your rainwater?
Well, I've just installed a 1,100 gallon tank, and then I have 4 65-gallon tanks that are on the north side of the building.
And do they fill up here in West Texas?
Well, the 65-gallon ones do. The 1,100, we haven't had enough rain out here to put more than a puddle in it lately. So I hope it fills up, but you know, you can't want to fill up a rain barrel the day it rains. You have to be prepared. You have to have it ahead of time.
Yes, ma'am.
This is compost tea. In this mesh bag, I have worm castings, and then I have an inoculant in here and molasses, and then I have air stones that put air into the water, and that's what makes your tea. And I also use rainwater on this, trying to make it better. This is the bottom of an IBC tank. Over here is another part for my hydroponic. It's an IBC tank and the hydroponic also. Both of them have either the bottom or the top of an IBC tank. That's how I get water in here. This is connected to my rainwater outside, and I have a pump that I turn on, and then I fill this and I fill my aquaponics with it.
Nancy, how often do you have to refill the water?
Well, the tomato plant uses quite a bit of water for the leaves and the production of the leaves and the tomatoes. I check it during the winter. I check it about once a week, and right now it's like about right here. But if it gets too much further down, I just have to check it and see. The same thing with the aquaponics. The other day it had been like a week since I had checked it, and I came out and my pump was sucking air. So you don't want that. You need that circulation.
Okay.
This is the way I heat it. This is a heater out of a small mobile home. My husband hung it from the ceiling, and it is vented out the ceiling. It runs on propane, and the propane is in a tank outside. The silver tubes that he made it where I can direct my heat so it will heat more evenly. I also have a fan that brings the heat down, a ceiling fan that brings the heat down to hopefully keep it a little warmer. But I do have my thermostat set at 50, and it's pretty good about keeping it at 50 even when it gets in the 20s outside.
And I did notice also, Nancy, you have insulation in the ceiling. So
yes,
that also helps with the heat as well, and the cooling.
And the cooling. This is my air conditioner that is a swamp cooler. I have a hose connection right here and I keep the water hooked up to it, but it is well water. And these are supposed to be bright blue, and because of the calcium, it has stopped them up. The filters that are supposed to be in here are like a big corrugated cardboard, and those stopped up real quick. So I thought, well, I'll try this and see, but it is so stiff now that it's just not working. I have a small filter that my husband got me to put on it, and I'm gonna try again this summer to see if I can not have so much calcium buildup on it. Okay, this is my very small workbench that it needs to be a lot bigger. My sink is hung on the wall, and it is so tiny that it's really not usable. So to install a bigger sink that you just need a bigger sink in a bigger work area. Up in the ceiling, there is a silver plug that's up in there now, but during the summer, that comes down, and there's a big fan up there that came off of a refrigerated air conditioner unit, and it pulls, you turn it on and it pulls the heat up and out. I didn't mention under my windows, I have little bitty holes that are covered up now, but that's supposed to pull some of the air, the hot air that's low, and pull it out the roof. And then there's plugs along the side that have styrofoam in them also that is supposed to pull it up, the heat out, but it's just not enough.
Nancy, I know another consideration in a greenhouse is the flooring or the ground. So you've got brick and you've got some rock. So could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Okay, under all of this is a very heavy commercial grade landscape cloth, and it is made for greenhouses. Then the brick is the walkway, or where I can, if I have a wagon or something, I can push the wagon on it or the wheelbarrow. And then the rock is for drainage. My soil is very sandy, so I never have a problem with it not draining correctly.
Yes, I know that those walkways are wonderful for those carts and those wagons that you have to drag.
Yeah, if I have something heavy to bring in here, or for the winter, or for potting soil or something, I can just drag my wagon in, and the brick makes it really easy to pull on.
Nancy, you mentioned your worm castings. What exactly are worm castings?
Well, they're it's really worm poop. It's what the red wiggler produces. You feed them your kitchen scraps, and then they produce fertilizer, and it's a great fertilizer. This is an old refrigerator. My other one was even older, and the bottom of it rusted out. So I got another one. You need it where they need air, but you also need it where children can't get in it. I don't have children in the neighborhood, but you need to prop it open a little bit, and this way, this cannot shut no matter what. I had to start over because I had put a lot of cantaloupe in here, and it drowned them. So I decided to put a drain in, and I just drilled a hole, put PVC in there, and now I have a drain if I get too much water in there.
So let me ask you just real fast, could you also make some compost tea out of what's coming from the drain?
Yes,
okay.
that could be compost tea also. You, in your composting, no meats, no butters, no oils. So anything else goes in here. The worms are fairly small.
Now, did you purchase the worms to be put in here, or did they just come because of the scraps in here?
No. These worms originally came from another master gardener that lived in Crane. Coy has passed away since, but that's where I got my original start from, is from him.
But you can also purchase worms like at a nursery, correct?
I've seen them at Walmart.
Okay.
In the fishing section, but they're red wigglers. They're not your night crawlers. Night crawlers need it a lot colder, than what we have here. These do not, I don't move this, it stays out here year round. So it's on the north side of this fence, so it can get pretty hot and it can get pretty cold. But they just, with it as deep as it is, they just kind of go to the middle. And this is great compost. Another thing they like is paper, shredded paper, just not the slick paper. That does not absorb water, so it doesn't get soft. The smaller the pieces, the easier it is for them to eat it.
And I think you can also take cardboard, right, and tear it into
Yes.
small pieces.
Cardboard, they'll eat any paper except for the slick.
So how do you get the castings out of this big mix?
This is one way. This is supposed to be for grilling vegetables, but it got rusty, so I decided to repurpose it. So I've got quite a bit of paper in here, but you just dig down and get some, and you put a layer in here. Then you leave it for about an hour, and the worms will go out the hole, and you have, most of the worms will, so then you have compost. The worms do not like the light, and they don't like the heat. So they're gonna go down, and then that way you've got it separated.
Okay. Now what about moisture? Do you have to maintain a certain moisture level?
Yes, this needs to be a little, I need to put a little water in here.
Okay.
It needs to be like a wrung out sponge, and it needs to be where it holds together when you squeeze it, and you can see I do need to put some water in here.
Very good. So you've got some vegetables in here, some coffee grinds,
Tea bags.
tea bags.
The coffee, you just put the whole thing in. The
Filter and all,
filter
right?
and all. The tea bags too. You just dump it all in here. You do every once in a while find a staple, and then sometimes my husband puts like a credit card through the shredder, so you end up with plastic. They don't do that. They don't eat plastic.
Right, so you don't want to have that. Right. And then I also understand that acidic fruits you don't want to, that
You can
it's too
do
acidic.
few.
Okay.
You can do some.
And then
but-
what about peppers and garlic?
Oh, that's great.
Okay, all right.
They don't. The hotness doesn't seem to bother them.
Okay, well what a rich, wonderful way to reuse and
It's recycle.
Yes,
Recycle your
very
kitchen
nice.
waste so that way it doesn't go into the landfill.
very nice.
And then you end up with you know what's in your compost. This is my rainwater harvesting setup. We have gutters. My greenhouse is 20 by 20, and we have gutters that go all the way around, and they come down this downspout and another one over there. This is the first flush that comes out, and then I can take, that has a plug on it, and I can take that plug out and water my keyhole gardens. But this tank is new, it's 1,100 gallons, so we have not had rain, so there's not anything in it. There's a puddle. On the other side, I have, these are called IBC tanks, and this is what the aquaponics and hydroponics, I cut them off, and that's what the bed of that is. There's videos that you can cut it off and have a bed in one and your fish in the other, so you use the whole thing, but I did it a little different. Back behind here, I have 4 65-gallon plastic rain barrels, and that's where my rainwater is right now, which I don't have very much of it. So I'm really hoping it will rain, and I think about a 3-inch rain should pretty much fill this up with the amount of roof surface that I have.
Since we're talking about water, is there any concern for the pH level?
Not in the rainwater. In the well water, yes.
Okay. And do we have a filter coming into this big?
No,
Okay.
because the filter is the first flush.
Okay. All right.
This is on the north side of my greenhouse. You can see that the roof on this side is solid. Up where the louvers are, that's where the fan is, and that's called a cupola. And the fan comes on when I have it set to come on, and it pulls the hot air from the greenhouse out through those louvers.